So, happy lobster season, Southern California. Far from my biggest point of pride, but I do occasionally get lucky. That said, given my admittedly remedial lobster grabbing skills, I often treat them as more of a consolation prize than a main event. Nevertheless, the ocean provides. On the reef, there are two things that kind of go hand in hand for me. One of them is foraging for scallops and urchin, and the other is hunting a fish called a sheephead. Their diet is primarily invertebrates, so they tend to get extra curious when I'm prying on the reef and pulling stuff off. From what I understand from a conservation perspective, their population isn't exactly booming, so I don't take everyone that I see, but man, if they aren't delicious. Let's actually go back to the scallops for a minute. They're kind of interesting to forage off the reef. Bivalves, you're basically eating the muscle that moves the shell open and closed. While you generally want to watch out for algae-based toxicity in most filter feeders, because you're just eating that abductor muscle, it's kind of free from that concern. Usually I like to prepare them in the water just so that I'm returning all that viscera into the sea as food, and also their roe so they can reproduce a little bit more. For the meal I'm preparing here, I decided to head down to my local main street to a favorite market to see what they had in season and stock, to maybe inspire a couple of dishes around some ingredients. They definitely didn't disappoint. Also in prep, we've got lobster. So there's kind of a mixed consensus on whether or not lobsters actually feel pain. Some countries actually made it illegal for restaurants to boil them alive. The simplest way I've found to feel a little less squidgy about killing a lobster, I put them in the freezer for a half hour so they go dormant and then just cut them right down the middle. That also makes it really easy to clean out the intestines from the tail. Then I separate the tail from the body, put the front half in a pot for stock. On this one, we are in no way gilding the lily, just going straight into a steamer basket with some butter, and that's pretty much all my wife demands. Next up, I'm going to stir fry some fresh yu choy from the market. Let me first of all say that I just love peeling the paper off of garlic. Who doesn't love peeling the paper off of garlic? I'm gonna crush that garlic up and put it in with some serrano peppers, macing the whole house in the process, of course. Then I'm going to add the yu choy, some sesame oil, and fish sauce, and set that aside as my side. So what comes next? Well, we're gonna make a bisque. To start, we're going to mince up some shallots. We're gonna throw some unburnable magic butter into the skillet, and we're just gonna let those two work their magic for a little while. From there, I'm going to deglaze the skillet with a little dry white wine, then let that set to caramelizing while I prepare a sachet. This one's really simple, just parsley, bay leaf, and thyme. That's gonna go in the pan with some carrots, some fresh made lobster stock, and some chopped up celery. Once that spends enough time simmering, it all goes into the blender to make nice and smooth. That gives us just enough time to sear the scallops, and then plate in the bisque. Little heavy cream for garnish. Surprising no one who knows me, and absolutely true to my brand, I only got about a third of the cooking done on this project the night of, because it takes so long to cook and film together. So the remains ended up getting cooked the next morning for a pretty interesting breakfast. First up, we start with coffee. Always coffee. Tristero is a wonderful local roaster run by a guy named Greg Thomas, who we absolutely love. Only coffee I've ever gotten still warm from the roaster, and only coffee I've ever gotten with tasting notes on the bag. Anyway, I can't stretch milk to save my life, so you get abstract latte art. So caffeine out of the way, what's for breakfast? We're gonna have some Sheephead Crudo, which is basically Italian fancy speak for raw meat. Fitting with the breakfast theme and my wife's distaste for anything too sour, we're going to fresh squeeze some oranges. At the market, I found some perfectly ripe passion fruit that I just couldn't say no to. Thinly sliced habanero and serrano peppers for a good bit of heat, and appropriately French breakfast radishes. Then there's this weirdo. I cannot believe I have lived this long without knowing about the finger lime, aka caviar lime. Honestly, this made my whole week. They're from Australia. Who knew that while we were distracted with all the venomous, bitey stuff over there, they had the coolest fruit in the world? Anyway, peppers go in the orange juice to kind of marinate a little bit. Following that, I liberally dress the sheephead with that mixture. From there, I'm adding the thinly sliced radishes, adding the passion fruit, and of course, I'm adding uni for breakfast. From there, it's just a gratuitous sprinkling of finger lime and garnishing with the radish greens. So how was it? Pretty good. I would say it was really interesting to have this kind of tiered theme of spherification between the uni, the finger limes, and the crunchy seeds of the passion fruit. They also brought a very nice, subtle acidity to the dish. The sheephead itself is just amazing fresh. It kind of has a buttery, almost melt-in-your-mouth quality. My only real issues were that I kind of laid out the fish in such a dense way that you really had to kind of stir it up to really bring all the flavor together. On top of the fact that while delicious and a perfect complement to the dish, the radish greens just didn't have the aesthetic I wanted to when their main function was kind of as a garnish on top. Aside from that, I was really pleasantly surprised with how the orange juice and the uni kind of subdued such a sharp heat of habanero and serrano, and it kind of came out as this nice slow burn. It was there, but it was nice and kind of distributed. That's about it. Extra thanks to my wife for putting up with all of my Swedish chef-style flailing around the kitchen as I try to both cook and film at the same time. There might have been swearing. I can't be certain. Anyway, thanks for coming along. This is always fun as I document my own growth in both the catching and the cooking. Hopefully you take something away from it as well. Blah, blah, blah. Like and subscribe. See you on the next one.